Okay, item 18, Christchurch Northern Corridor Downstream Effects Bus Lane Trial, request for time extension. Lynette, any commentary on this one? It's reasonably self-explanatory.
It is reasonably self-explanatory. It's about us continuing the bus lane while we complete the works to the east in the development plans to the east.
Okay, so Jake, your move. I'm happy to second this one. Are there any questions? Aaron. Aaron.
Yeah, the results from the trial, because it was a bus lane trial, when do we see the results? I thought we'd see them before we did the extension or spent money on mitigation.
So firstly, when council originally approved this trial, as we've done with this whole project, we've had to engage with the independent traffic expert. His concern was that having a bus lane and not a clearway, which was what, so the bus lane was community's desire, clearway was the independent traffic expert's desire, so having a bus lane would cause rat running in the local streets. He was only happy for us to run that bus lane trial for 3 months and assess whether we caused rat running in the local streets. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's correct, yeah.
And it hasn't. So it hasn't caused substantial, and he's happy for it to continue while we continue to gather data.
So
yes, and we have seen up to 60 seconds of time saving for the morning peak coming in. So we do have that information at the moment. But we want to have an extension of time to make these recommendations on whether it becomes permanent, because the stage 2 works affecting Francis Ave and Flockton Street are quite important. And if we have a decision made on a bus lane being made permanent now, we are essentially removing that as an option to look at clearways or to look at moving traffic from those other local streets back onto the Cranford corridor. So
we're trying to leave our options open for the whole year.
Yeah, it said a 30% increase in here, which I would have thought's a reasonable increase on a local street, but we're spending some money on mitigation. How much are we spending?
Not at this point. So the stage 2 work, we are looking at the options for mitigation of that 30% increase for those 2 streets. And at this point, as I said, all the options are on the table as to how we address it and actually what the priorities are for that community, whether it is actually a reduction in traffic or...
So the reality is that will be reported back separately and isn't part of this report, but it is part of the reason why we're asking to extend the bus lane in its temporary form, because it is still only a bus lane trial.
And the 1 minute saving, is that all the traffic?
The bus.
Just the bus.
Right, so yeah, so I went and had a look this morning. I sat down there from 8:20 till 9 o'clock. There was 4 buses, the most people on any one of the buses, which I would have thought that's a peak time. People arriving for 9 o'clock is 8 people on a bus. So there was like in total approximately 30 people in that time period. That's not a huge savings when the traffic's banked up to placemakers, going against our carbon reduction policy of causing congestion and all that carbon. It's not how it works with those cars.
All right, so is there a question in there?
EVs.
Is there a question in there?
Yeah, well, the numbers, we're doing a bus lane trial, but there's no one on the bus, so we need to see the numbers of the people on the bus to go, yes, the trial's working. You got a lane, you got buses in it.
So what's the question?
What's that is, the question is, how can we make a decision on extending something when we've got no evidence on how well it is or isn't working? It was a 3-month trial, yes.
Yeah, so this is extending the trial so that we've got further information before we decide whether to make it permanent or not.
So then, why are we not trialling the original plan put forward by the independent engineer that we pay all that money for, that says to do...
All right, can we either get a question for staff or not? Because there are comments that can be made in debate.
Yeah, I was just
But
being
if there's a,
interrupted by
if
the
there's a
chair
question for staff,
constantly.
then let's have it.
So the question is, why do we not trial the original design for the road, which was put forward by the engineer as the best way for that road to work? Would that not make the most sense?
Is that a question that staff can answer? Because we made a decision to do what we're doing, and we're now been faced with an opportunity to make a decision to extend what
But
we
it is
decided
still
to do
only a
temporarily.
trial. It is
Yeah.
still only a trial.
Then why on earth
your
would we get engineers to design stuff?
These are not
and pay
questions.
tens?
These are not
It's a question.
questions for staff. Let's move on, Sarah.
Can I
No,
just
we
check-
shouldn't move
Can I
on.
check
This
three
is
things?
poor-
So
poor
the reason that we had an independent person giving advice on what to do here isn't because we asked for it, it's because that was a consent condition, is that right?
Correct.
So we didn't ask for that. It was something that we were told to do by someone else.
Correct.
Excellent.
By the
So
commissioners.
when it comes to bus occupancy, if you're standing at the side of the road and seats are low and windows are high, can you tell how many people are on a bus?
I'm not.
Okay,
That's
don't go
not
into
something
that
I
one.
can
Yep.
enter into. Sorry.
So the purpose of time savings on a bus, that is to encourage bus uptake and increase usage over time. Is that right?
Yes. So there's a lot of research worldwide that shows passenger transport reliability is a key factor in
Uptake.
achieving uptake.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Yanni.
Yeah. So can I just check if we got the patronage data back from ECAN?
No, we haven't.
And why
We,
not?
we have some, but I'm.
But we
I
only
don't have that.
We only have a couple of months
So,
data, so we will
so when did
extend
we?
the trial. We will have more information for that.
No, but in 5.22,
Yeah.
is
so
the
I
data's
was
been
wrong.
sought from ECAN. When did we ask ECAN for the data, and why can they not provide it?
So we asked for it monthly. I don't have it with me. I can get it from our traffic planner who collects the data.
Do you have any sense of what the patronage has been?
No.
I mean,
So that's
Staff-
information that you would expect to provide when we get to a point of a
Of
decision
making
to
it
make
a-
this permanent.
Making a final decision for a permanent solution.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we'll have an option, we'll have a decision at some point to make this permanent or not make it permanent.
sorry, the trial was
that's
until.
information
Sorry,
we
can
need
I
at
just be
that
clear?
time.
The trial was until 28th of May. It's now, what is it now? August? We've asked ECAN for information, and we can't get patronage data on something as simple as a bus going down a street. I mean, that does seem a bit. Sorry, I find that hard to understand. I mean, the report is good. It's got lots of details about other things, but that one seems to be like a glaring gap in terms of what we need to know.
So
But
part
are
of
people
putting-
actually catching the bus because of this?
Part of putting PT in passenger service facilities is to improve patronage. The research that we talked about before talks about the reliability of the system, the facilities that we are putting on the road improve the reliability of the bus getting from A to B. We would hope to see a growth in patronage over that time. This has been in place for about 4 or 5 months. It's not very long, really.
But
Less
you
than
would
that,
expect
less than that.
I get all that. But
You
like,
would
We're not going to-
expect to have those
pretty
patronage
fundamental
figures
We'll have as
when
much
we're
as we
faced with a
can.
decision as to whether we make this permanent or whether we don't.
And we would
Or whether we
expect to have
extend
some
it.
ideas at that point of how we would expect growth to occur over that time.
Yeah. So
And
let's
over the
accept
future,
that
into
we've
the
got in
future.
front of us a recommendation today which does not have that patronage data sitting behind it. But when we come to make a decision about whether or not we make this permanent, we will have that.
okay. And can I just check on the in 5.21? So the traffic monitoring that we're doing in terms of the 30% increase, like, is that done on a sort of weekly basis, a daily basis, a monthly basis?
It's
And
hourly. So
Hourly,
for
right.
12 monitoring locations, and it's presented monthly to the community board to have a look through. We
Right.
do have hourly data on.
it's done by street, so you know which streets are getting the increase?
We have 12 certain spots that were
12 sites.
Yeah, 12 sites that were nominated by the independent traffic expert as part of the bus lane
Right.
trial requirements.
So is the 30% overall rather than like, or is it on specific streets?
Specific streets.
It's 30% on a street.
Yeah.
And we've gone through that multiple occasions.
Yeah, and there's-
multiple reports that we've had on the CNC.
And just from the report, is it correct in understanding that there's two two roads that aren't
Correct.
getting the 30% reduction?
It's not a reduction. We're looking at a 30%,
increase.
more than 30% increase in traffic volume.
And is that Francis and Thames Street or
Francis and Flockton.
Francis and Flockton? Okay. Cool.
Thank you. So Phil and then Sam. Phil.
Yeah, morning. I know the independent guy said that we should perhaps try Clearway, and I feel that we're doing the bus thing, and we've had the 3 months plus. If we do it until February next year, will we then try for 3 or 4 months the Clearway option so that we've got data on how better or worse that is? Because we can have all the consultants in the world tell us that the Clearway is good or bad, but unless we try it, we won't know. We won't be able to compare it.
So we've had a very clear message from the community and from the community board that that is not an option that they want us to consider. So we came back to you and we said, that's part of the decision process that's already been through.
So if there was
I think it's unlikely.
So if there was a desire to do that, the time to raise it would be when we're faced with a decision paper on whether to make this permanent or not. And if not, then is there something else that we would do? That would be the opportunity for the scenario that's been described.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Sam and then Mike and then Sarah. Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So if that's the case, what was the point of a trial?
Sorry, what do you mean?
So if the case is we've had a clear view from the community that we won't trial a Clearway, if we get to the end of this next trial, assuming it goes through, we're not going to be in a position to make a decision on if we have a bus lane or a
Part of
Clearway.
the issue at that time was the independent expert and the local community completely disagreed. We worked with the independent expert to say, well, how about we give it a go and have a trial of the bus lane.
Yeah.
And see if, because he was utterly convinced that it would cause rat running on local streets. It would not provide enough traffic flow to get the traffic through. And the point of the designation is that we cannot cause rat running on local streets. So he was convinced it would, and it hasn't panned out as he thought it would. So hence he's comfortable with the extension of the bus lane trial, which also allows us to trial. To get some really good data if we extend it on bus time reliability, improving patronage, fingers crossed, and all those other factors. When we come back to that report, an option in that report will be to put in a Clearway, because that is still an option. But what I'm trying to say is that the community have given a very clear view all through this, at the indirect disagreement with the independent expert, that they do not want more cars going down this corridor. They want the council to support more people and less vehicles. So that either an HOV lane or a bus lane. And at the time that we did this, we didn't have the facilities to put an HOV in.
Right. So, and then just back to that patronage number. So we do have that we've got that. Someone's got that in the building.
We do. Yeah.
Well,
Whether it's in the building or it's in ECAN, I'm not sure at the moment, but we can get it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same view. I'm not sure we would proceed without that. So I'd be almost inclined to leave this laying on the table. Yeah. I mean, there's no point proceeding with a trial if we don't know who's been using it.
So the information exists.
Yes. That's my understanding.
Well, why don't we have the information? It also just seems...
Well, if somebody wants...
It is about improving the opportunity for more people to travel in less vehicles.
But I guess where I'm getting to is it would be really useful to see that now, so that if we do proceed with another trial...
We've had a few months of a brand new bus service.
Yeah.
There wasn't a bus, so this is also a brand new bus service, park and ride bus service from Kaiapoi.
But back to that point though, if what would be really useful is to see that information, so that if we do proceed, then we can judge whether that's been successful. It will fundamentally alter what we decide at the end of this trial if it's to proceed. So I'm just not sure why I wouldn't have that.
All right. So,
Wait, sorry.
I mean,
Sorry.
there is a question as to if that information. So, given that that information exists, what's the reason it wasn't able to be incorporated in this report?
I'm not sure.
Well, the point of a bus lane is about improving reliability of the bus.
Yeah.
A brand new bus service has low patronage. It's sort of pointless information.
So
from
are
my
you
point of
saying
view.
that
we
it
didn't
would be
believe
early
it was
to-
important
The
information. to
time
put in.
saving
So
is the
even-
most important.
So even if that information existed, would your advice be that it was early days in the trial and it would be better to look at that with a longer trial before
say do
making
it
a decision
longer.
about what to do permanently?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
That would be my advice to send that through, because I think it will be low patronage numbers. It's a brand new bus service.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Actually, most of the questions have already been answered by Lynette when she was just talking. But I guess just
Sorry.
Sorry, Mike.
to confirm a couple of things, when it does come back to us after the conclusion of the trials, and obviously having this extended time frame actually allows to get some time to get some really good data and actually time for the bus service and people to realise actually how good it is. Because even when you look at the travel time savings along the part of Cranford Street, actually if you look at the whole journey from Wollaston, I think the bus is averaging 17 minutes from Tram Road into the CBD, which is absolutely outstanding. So if people want to travel in from Wollaston or from Rangiora, bus is actually a really good way to do it. But my question is, when it comes back, obviously, it'll come back with not just a recommendation from a community board, and it'll also come back with a recommendation from the independent engineer.
Yep.
And councillors will be at that time have the ability to make whatever decision they want based on all the information that they've been provided from the community board.
And the refresh of the information that the community have given us on multiple occasions.
Yeah. So the fact that this is a trial and we've heard loud and clear from the community and community board that they do not want Clearway, it will be a decision of council at the end of the day, and they can either listen to the community or make their own decision.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah and then Pauline.
Thanks so much. If we were to keep trialling this for a bit and then switch to trial a Clearway, because you'd lose the travel time savings, would we be likely to lose PT customers?
I can't answer that
Can't
one.
answer that, okay.
No, not really.
So it's clear that there's lots of sort of international research and probably research from NZTA and those kind of things on what encourages PT uptake and those kind of things. And while we're just trialling this one small thing and talking about data for this one small thing, it would be really useful if councillors could be circulated some of the links to that research so that they can have confidence in the overall sort of evidence-based approach of this, because there's lots of different things that impact on it. So
I suggest through the chair, we've talked previously at committees about a briefing later in September about the broader PT picture. We tie that into that, and we
but
make
if we're
sure
able
all
to
that
send
information
through
is provided
some
for
links
that time.
to some of that, because there's plenty of research around on it, both internationally and
There is.
Kotahi on that stuff.
There is.
So it'd be good to make sure that we're using that evidence base and councillors are aware of it. Thanks. Yeah, then, it's up to councillors whether they actually open it or not.
Pauline. All right. So are there any further questions? So now let's move into debate, and it sounds as though there is going to be some. Pauline.
Yeah. Look, I'm a little bit frustrated with this because I'd like to point out to councillors or remind councillors that the local community board, with staff and with the community, have sweated, laboured, cried, laughed over this for months and months and months. Not so much laughing, I know. But it has been the most challenging thing, and I think you remember the community coming in here with model cars and all sorts of things when we were approving the downstream effects way back. This is a motorway that's funneling into a community, and the community is doing their best to move forward with the times to protect the community, but also to address climate change issues. So this is although it's a metropolitan effect, it's very much a local matter. And the community board has been very, very closely working with staff. Staff have done an incredible job. They've had public meetings with the community coming out, answered a millions, squillions of questions fired through it to you guys repeatedly. And so please don't think that this is not a work in progress. This is a constant piece of work that's coming to our board regularly, and we're really trying to get the best results for everybody. So I think it would be really nice going forward if there was perhaps a little community board chair kind of memo to go with this sort of thing, just to advise us of the work that is going on behind the scenes when these things come to the council, because we can be forgiven for getting a helicopter view on this and forgetting that actually there's so much work going into this constantly. So I really ask you to support this today and not go against what the local community board and staff and the members of the community who are directly affected by this are putting into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yanni.
Look, I'm really happy to support this trial being extended. I think it makes sense for a whole bunch of reasons. The fact that we've, gone through the COVID-19, we're in the middle of a pandemic, that we've got a lot of disruption happening. We've still got outstanding projects to try and reduce the increased traffic through some streets in this area. So I personally do feel it makes sense to extend the trial, but I really struggle with the fact that we don't have patronage data. And, the irony is that every time we talk about bus lanes and weighing up the investment, we struggle to get basic information. So I'm happy to get all the international research in the world, but if we can't even measure or know how many people are riding a bus down a bus lane that we've put in, then I don't think that international research is going to make any difference to our understanding about the level of our investment and the benefits of that investment. So, I think we need to raise this with ECAN. We've also heard in the past that ECAN doesn't know where people get off a bus. And so there's just basic stuff that with technology, we should be so much better informed about what we're doing around PT, that we just feels like we're just guessing in the dark half the time. So, I find it really disappointing that we can't get basic information. And I would have thought, given that the trial has already concluded in terms of the May date, 2 months basically, or a month and a half, and to not even have basic information about it, I think is just incredibly disappointing. So I hope we can learn from this. If we need to elevate this with the ECAN chief executive or the chair of ECAN so that we can get basic information, then let's do that in our next conversation that we have with them. But I think the trial, extending it makes sense, but I just think it's really frustrating not to be given basic information.
Sarah.
Thanks. I'd like to remind councillors that in the past, what's been asked for by way of data from the organisation when it comes to bus lanes and bus trials and all of those kind of things is whether the modelling worked and whether the travel time savings have worked. And that is the key thing that people have asked for in the past. We've got that data today, 60 seconds at this point, which is fantastic. It's really good for a really short section of road. And so I think that having that is fantastic to support our decision making today to extend this trial. The data on usage is available. It's just not actually in this report today. And it's also not the be-all and end-all, because it's one of those things that there are no silver bullets when it comes to public transport. It's incremental changes over time that build up. And with a new bus route and new layout, things will increase over time. I'm really keen to listen to the community and to the community board on this one. It's clear that it's improving bus reliability without the negative impacts of the rat running that might have been expected. And I know that some councillors will always find an excuse to vote against any climate action, and they are ideologically wedded to cars and unable to look beyond their steering wheels. And that's okay, because that's a representative kind of point of view. Just following on from Aaron's bashing earlier. So that's the way that goes. And I'm hoping that the majority of councillors today will see that incremental public transport increases over time do our city a benefit. And while I would love a much greater step change, I think that this is where this trial's at. It's just a trial. And I encourage people to vote in favour.
Sam.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I always find it disappointing when these debates become personal, because actually if the issues people are talking about are so important, then actually we should debate the facts. That's all we've wanted to do, is debate the facts, which have the data which proves whether this is working or not so far. Well, no, we haven't, Sarah, and that's the whole
Okay,
point.
let's continue with the debate.
Sorry, I better not just contradict myself. The reality is we're not asking for a lot. All we want to see is what's been working so far as part of this. I mean, probably my real concern with it was if 3 months wasn't long enough, why did we approve a 3-month trial at the beginning? The real challenge is going to be when we get to the end of this, if it goes through today, arguing the contrary, which is in fact that something else may work because we haven't been able to trial it. So I'm sort of frustrated that potentially we've got to a point where this is going to go through regardless. And if that's the case, then why are we sort of putting the trial name on it? So yeah, I'm not convinced that's the thing. But look, I would just urge, I guess, in future, if we want to debate serious issues, that potentially we don't sort of attack each other, but instead debate the facts. Yeah.
So I support this for a number of reasons. I think it makes perfect sense. I would certainly far rather make a permanent decision on whether we do this on a permanent basis or whether we don't, with robust information in front of us. The bus time reliability is what this is all about, and it's encouraging that we've got some figures on that. 60 seconds is significant. And I mean, if anybody doubts that bus lanes work, I'd invite anybody to do exactly what I did yesterday, which is take the bus from Hospital Corner to the Riccarton Bus Lounge. Took me about 10 minutes yesterday afternoon, and I was going along the bus lane and there were cars stationary, and I was at the Riccarton Bus Lounge long before some of the vehicles that I passed would have been anywhere close to there. I had my half-hour meeting and then I took the bus 10 minutes back. And it probably took me less time to get there and back by bus than it would have done if I'd driven. So these PT lanes do work, there's no question about it. And we've got the data in front of us to show that this one's working. It's improved journey times by 60 seconds. I'll be interested in what's reported back when we come to make a more permanent decision on this. And that decision is whether we continue this permanently or whether we don't, and we'll have a paper in front of us that supports that or doesn't at the time. And then picking up Phil's point, there may well be other things that we can look at if we decided not to continue it. But I'm going to have significant regard to what the community board have told us previously, what the community have told us previously. I acknowledge the comments that Pauline has made, who has got a far closer relationship with this particular community and is closer to this piece of work than I am. I give significant weight to that. And I also give significant weight to, as a council, we have decided, when we decided our strategic directions, we support mode shift, we support getting people out of cars onto public transport, and this is one small step in that direction. Aaron.
Yeah, a couple of things about this decision paper today, which is quite interesting. It's a bit of a front page test around the not having the numbers. We put in a trial. Trial should have been 6 months if you can't get the data in 3, or if it takes a long time to get people on buses. Our own bus numbers, when we did the paper last year to increase funding towards public transport infrastructure over the next 10 years, where we double the spend, only takes the bus usage from 2.2 to 3%. That's a fail in itself. So it's interesting that people sit around this table and let their ideology go crashing into reality time and time again, when if we look at the actual numbers, there are thousands of cars choked up on Cranford Street each day, which could be, and I'm not saying would be, because I'd like to see the data, could be solved by using a clearway. I'm not saying it would, but I'd like to see it actually working, and we would have that option, but we'll choose not to, just like Sam said, that we'll eventually go to just putting in the bus lane. We know that's going to happen because that's how we operate, but it's already been permanently marked anyway. And
continue
is it
with
not
the debate.
Permanently marked? No, yeah, it was.
Continue.
They got repainted prior to this paper coming to council. So you go down and see it. Okay, maybe it's temporary paint. Anyway, the bus trial's gone through. The public will be saying to themselves, why on earth are you not showing us the numbers of people on the bus? Don't tell us there's 50 buses a day. If the idea is mode shift's not putting more buses on, like Yanni said, let's just order 1,000 buses and have them running around everywhere.
Point of
And
order, no
virtue
one
signal-
said that there were 50 buses
It's
a
not,
day.
it's not a point of order. Aaron, continue with the
No, it's
debate.
yeah.
Let's put on lots of buses, but have no one on them. And I have a friend of mine that was in the city on the weekend who was using the bus, who is a little person, and you can see him when he's on the bus. I can see him out the window, waves at me as he goes past. And he had my 5-year-old son, the same height. And Harry says that Jimmy's the same age because they're the same height. And you can see them on the bus. There is, unless everyone's doing up their shoelaces when they go past on Cranford Street, because of all the walking they're about to do at the other end. But we just need to see the numbers. I will support people getting on buses, but we're using an old-fashioned, last
Name one
century
time.
public transport system that is not getting people on buses. Having large, empty buses burning diesel around our city is not going to solve the world's climate change problems. Using smart technology and being creative and doing stuff a lot differently to what we currently are might go towards that. So when people accuse others of not trying to save the planet, have a wee look in the mirror when you send another bus off with no one in it. A diesel missile, we'll call it.
Mike.
Where do I go from? It's actually sometimes really disappointing to listen to some of the debates around this council chambers, especially from certain people that just don't comprehend fact sometimes. Look, this trial was done on the basis of the fact that there was concern that actually of the rat running. Okay, it wasn't about patronage, it was about the rat running. And so therefore we had a timeline of the trial to make sure actually the concerns from the independent engineer wouldn't come about. What was very clear through this trial was that did not happen. The rat running has not increased to a point that would have to do something. So actually that proved that part successful. So what we need to do now is actually extend the trial to gather more data, including patronage, because you can't expect to put a new service on and expect in the first couple of months that suddenly you've got all these people on the buses, because it doesn't work that way. But what we do with time and messaging and other areas to actually encourage people like the park and ride and actually letting people know that actually the patronage will increase. To have the numbers right now at this point of the trial would actually be counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve, which is actually giving people good modal choice. We know actually when you look at the travel time savings across the whole of this journey, it's actually really, really efficient and be a great form of transport for people that work in our CBD. And therefore, if we can encourage that, we'll actually get more people on buses, less people in their cars, which will actually increase productivity because of the removal of congestion and actually reduce our emissions. Why anyone would want to suddenly try and sabotage that by trying to get patronage numbers when we've only just started a trial is just trying to actually go against PT initiatives that will provide better outcomes for our city.
Tried to get the patronage numbers.
Is there any further debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? No. Can we get a division on that, please?
And for the sake of those on the Zoom, and can I ask you to use your microphones?
Yeah. Thank you.
We should do it as.
Right. Councillor Galloway.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor McClellan.
Aye.
Councillor Major.
No.
Councillor Goff.
No.
Councillor MacDonald.
No.
Councillor Kewen.
No.
Councillor
Should we stop
Cotter.
there?
Aye. Councillor Davidson.
Aye.
Councillor Scandrett.
Aye.
Councillor Chu.
No.
Councillor Coker.
Yes.
Councillor Templeton.
Aye.
Councillor Chen.
Yes.
That's 10-4.
So 10 in favour and 4 against.
1, 2, 5.
5 against. So that's carried. Thank you. All right. Next item, item 20, tsunami warning siren warning system as an alerting tool. So Sonali and others, you've been sitting there listening to